Hello, I'm Richard Bruce from Los Angeles, California, and here is yet another gang stalking report that I got from uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube starting in February of 2013. How this happened was, I discovered this topic on YouTube because I enjoy sci-fi, paranormal subjects like UFOs, Bigfoot, stuff like that, and I happened across this crazy looking subject called reptilian shapeshifting. So I checked it out, and first I thought it was just, people playing around with Photoshop, dressing up the film to make it look like people are showing reptile fangs and claws and stuff, And so I kept seeing it though, and I thought, well, okay, I'll check this out. And most of the people that were uploading these types of movies didn't seem rational. They just seemed like, they're pointing out all kinds of stuff that I know because I know something about video. Codec errors, transmission errors, refresh rate errors, compression, clumping stuff together so people might start to see odd shapes. They don't know about all that stuff. But where it began to change for me is when I noticed beast-specific characters like tiles and fangs that shouldn't be there, like it can't be motion from the guy going like that really fast because it's the rest of the face would be blurred, not just the fangs. So I checked this out, and but it still seemed like lunacy to me until I saw this guy who had a channel called Frequency Fence, and he made a report on the movie The Matrix, which I was familiar with that movie because it was an icon of my youth with Keanu Reeves. And I thought, hey, great, I'll check this out. I'll see if there really is something there because I didn't have the Blu-ray, so I ran down and bought it, put it on my high-def TV. Then I took my video camera to the TV, and then I took that film apart in my video editor, because at the time I didn't have a video card to record this stuff, but I found out later it actually works better by pointing your video camera at the TV, okay? So I took it apart, and whoa, this is when I was blown away, but I had really no idea what I was looking at. It's just so weird, so crazy. I'm like, okay, all right, but I was seeing tiles and discolorations and prolonged fingernails that look like claws and stuff, and I'm because when you first see something that is just out of your entire belief system, you don't see it really. You don't comprehend it. It's like the Mayans or whatever, the native Indians when they saw the Spaniards coming, when they saw the ships, it's like they didn't see it because they couldn't comprehend that such a thing could be. It's like it just scrambled their mind. Well, that's kind of how reptilian shapeshifting is. Now, just to let you know, okay, now I know a lot of people watching this and seeing me for the first time, they don't know whether I still have my sanity together or not, because this sounds crazy, and I know it sounds crazy. Let me just tell you what happened, okay, and just see if you can hold off judgment for a few seconds, because I'm a skeptic too. When people say stuff, I'm thinking, there's plenty of nutty people that I can totally confirm that they just do not have their reasoning faculties together, and they are uploading all kinds of weird stuff or saying all kinds of weird stuff, and I know it's just that they are imagining it, or maybe they're, straight up delusional, who knows. But this is what happened, okay? So I saw that there were these features there, and I put it all together in a video called Reptilian Matrix Message, all in caps, and that was in February of 2013. And I uploaded that to YouTube. And literally within 15 minutes, there was about 7 helicopters, above my apartment, okay? And I'm thinking, oh, this must be a drug bust right here, because I have a big building over here in Woodland Hills that I lived in. And I thought, oh, maybe there's a drug bust or somebody's gone ape with a gun or something like that. But they were hovering up there for a long time, and I kept looking out the window. I'm like, holy crap, man, there's a lot of helicopters, and people are standing out in their balconies going, man, what's going on? And and I didn't even know. I had no clue at that point it had anything to do with me. And I know you're gonna think this is nuts, but just bear with me a second, okay? Hold on, don't click away just yet. So what happened was, then later on in the day, I kept yelling at helicopters, like doing a buzz, like flying over my place, and I since then call it buzzing. Like Buzz the Tower from Top Gun. Kind of Buzz the Tower. And it flies. Well, that's what kept happening as the day wore on. And it's like, it starts out with this, you know, the person who they're doing this to, you can hear it. It starts out low, and it gets louder, and then it flies over. And when it flies over low like that, a helicopter makes a lot of noise and vibration, so it goes, and you kind of go, holy shit, you know. It's like, and you know, because you're wondering, well, what's going on. I mean, you know, it's like a drug bust or something else. But I finally began to realize, holy cat, because the weirdness of what I had uploaded to YouTube just now, you know, kind of started to, I was kind of thinking, oh, you know, I started to go, whoa, is this connected? And so it turns out, sure enough, it was. And I mean, you know, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but just, you know, all I can tell you is I'm not. An advanced psychological study profile will prove this. My mother was a medical doctor and psychiatrist. My father was a former rocket scientist turned social worker. They knew that I was sane. And they still couldn't even accept what I told them. They knew I was telling the truth, but it's like it didn't register, non-compute. And what I've understood since then is that people are programmed against the truth. We are all under mind control. I know that sounds terrible. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds disconcerting, but it's the truth. We all have some form of mind control, various types, all kinds of stuff that you literally can't believe it until you investigate it yourself. Well, I didn't let this intimidate me. I decided to investigate more. So I started recording television, and I started taking it apart, going through it slowly, looking for these anomalies, and just all kinds of stuff that I could not explain coming up. I'll show a little bit of it on the screen here. I mean, and this happens with news, this happens with movies, and I began to you know, get the picture the more I saw of what various people were writing about it, like Frequency Fence and all these various people making movies about it and talking about how these are deceptive beings. They shapeshift. They have things that can give them like a holographic technology and stuff. And it's not so far-fetched when you think about how far we've come in holography and, you know, just computer displays and all this stuff. Just imagine if you had a million years ahead to work on this stuff, what kind of advanced stuff you can have. I was just watching something this morning. Somebody sent me a movie about people wearing a ring, and it bends the light around them, and they were getting very biblical about it. And I was like, whoa, and all kinds of stuff I didn't notice in the scripture. It's amazing, this stuff that you don't notice in the scripture that other people do. So that's why it's really good to listen to other people. Okay, so let me just round out the story here about basically what happened, what you're seeing here with these helicopters that I'm reporting. 5 years later, I am still getting this gang stalking. It's a form of psychological warfare harassment that they use against people who wake up. This whole thing is a lie. Everything you see on the news, every single news channel, no, not your special good one. That's not they're all paid, knowing liars. It's not a mistake. It's not like they don't know. They all know. They're all in on it. You can't even get close to a network news television situation unless you are cleared as being part of this lie of a system that we are all living in. Okay? So this, you know, continued to happen to me. In fact, I got followed around by these weird black SUVs and even police squad cars that were lighting up their sirens and zooming around me, but they didn't pull me over. But it was like every time I got my car to drive anywhere, I'd go to the grocery store, whee, just driving around me. I'm like, holy crap, what is this? So I bought a dash camera, and then I uploaded proof of that when I got this weird stuff happening to me twice in a row. There was no question about it. It was all one shot. And the guy's pulling in front of me, and then zooming around me. It's like an intimidation tactic. LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, and by the way, LAFD is in on it too, or they're using their likeness, because I since then also found out that they have holograms that can appear exactly with the vibration, everything. You can't tell the difference from a real one. See John Lear for that. John Lear is the son of this guy, was a part of the Learjet Foundation and company and everything, and he was explaining how they have this blue beam technology. You cannot tell, and other people say, no, I knew it was real because I could feel the vibration in my chest and everything. No, they have holograms that do all that, and you cannot tell by looking. Okay, so this thing is real. with the holograms, and they do this. And what it is, what gang stalking is, what targeting is. You may have heard the term. I had heard the term targeted individuals just loosely, just around the UFO interest kind of circles. You may hear people talking about targeted individuals. I didn't know what it was at all until it happened to me. I had zero idea. Wasn't even interested in it. I'm like, oh, some weirdo, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing how human beings do not care about anything until it happens to you. You don't give a crap about cancer. Not interested one single bit until it happens to you or a loved one. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So this happened to me, and then all of a sudden, now I care. Now I'm making movies about it. Now I'm talking about it. And let me tell you, it is gnarly. People commit suicide from this. They shoot energy weapons at people. I've had countless people since then contact me and fill me in, and I know this. It's worldwide. They use all different types of things, from energy beams that they just an energy beam can make you either depressed, or it can start a buzzing in your head, or they project voices into your head, drive people crazy. They keep telling people, like you'll hear a lot of these people say that are caught, they murdered somebody or something, and they say, yeah, I heard voices in my head. I heard voices in my head. Well, this is true. They project these voices in your head, and the other crazy thing about this, it's not just electronic. In fact, I think most of it is demonic. That is, it's actually devils, these evil spirits that live in all of us. That was the craziest thing that I've learned, and one of the most revealing things about this is that the non-humans that are behind all this are actually, in part, living in us as evil spirits. The person that you are listening to now, the person that's talking to you on this video, me, Richard, is part devil. Okay? I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds negative. No, you can't have that if you have the Holy Spirit. Read Romans 7. If Paul isn't a full-blooded Christian, who is, right? The Apostle Paul. And he was saying, oh, wretched man am I, because of the things of the evil that he knew dwells in him. Dwells, lives. We have evil beings that are persons, as Derek Prince, demonologist, puts it very well. These persons live in us, and they can give us these negative thoughts. You may find yourself, like me, always thinking about negative, violent thoughts all the time. Still have it. It's true, and I know it's a devil. It's not you. Sometimes you'll have a thought about, you'll wonder why people are attacking you for no good reason, or why all of a sudden you have a blow up with somebody and you get very mad at somebody, or something like that happens. This is the important thing for people to realize. It is a lot of times, in fact, because we are all comprised of these creatures. It's not like, there's, that's only for the bad psycho people, or that's only people with mental problems. No, we all have these persons living in us, and actually they are not called demons. They are called devils, and it's important to call them devils, I think. I mean, don't fuss over these labels like everybody does. Just realize that I think it's important to call them devils because it hooks up with the devil, who is their ruling spirit. The scripture says, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. So it's an over spirit that controls these smaller spirits that live in us, live in me, and make up part of who I am. My sense of humor, my evil sense of humor, my temper, and some of the competence and talents that I have in art or even in speaking right now, I think may be, and probably are, from these persons living in us. Okay, and these persons are they are not your friends. They are, and some people talking about some of the good aliens, some of the bad aliens. I believe there are extraterrestrials, and even some of these devils are extraterrestrials. But the fact of the matter is that the beings that are living in you as spirit beings are not your friends. Okay, they are out to destroy you with your own sin. Okay, so that you can be eaten. They are highly motivated. They have a whole economy based on payments and very exact plans, more organized than human. You think because they have these huge mouths with teeth, and they're reptiles and gray alien looking devils and all kinds of weird monsters and crap as spirit beings floating around us and in us, and also living outside of us as these extraterrestrials, these beasts. Okay, you got ones that look like rats, you got ones that look like alligators, you got ones that look like a dog, but they tend to be, by and large, a humanoid body that has 2 arms, 2 legs. bipedal beings, okay? Physical. Direct overhead, direct overhead. Direct overhead, direct overhead. Black and white LAPD flying direct overhead, turning off. So you see you made that complete circle in the area. Circled around came here like this, circle around like that. Still circling. Flying further east this time. By the sound of it, looks like it's going to go for another flyover. Yep.
If you have to understand that most reptilians will look on humans as the lowest of the low. When dealing with military, they have a first interaction protocol where the humans have to bow to them. After that, they don't have to do that because they've already shown their subservience to them. If you look at very wealthy bloodline families, the reptilians look on them as not equals but as the anointed ones of power, so they don't have to bow generally. For instance, if a Rothschild grouping, the alien will have the reptile will have the head chair. There'll be a beautiful carved chair somewhere, and that's where he will sit, and then the family will sit round. They don't have to bow at that point, but there will be a ceremonial point where they have to do the bowing. But you're really talking to me about ordinary Joe or Josephine in the house, and the reptilian comes in. That's very rare. That's incredibly rare. Reptiles do not generally come into a house to waste their time with a human. They'll send a grey. But where a reptile does come down, it's because that individual is so important that it requires an interaction from the high level.
Direct overhead, direct overhead. Psychological warfare coming home. Chopper overhead. We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube. Don't live in a free country. That's psychological warfare, friends. Don't be fooled. Buzz in progress, buzz in progress. Been building up for a while. And what they like to do is they like to build up the sound, build up the anticipation. Hey, while I'm thinking about it, I want to make a shout out to Redacted Tonight, and Lee Camp does a great job, and they really get it over there. And also kudos to RT for being the sponsor for that. I mean,
let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we got our soul. Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we got our soul. Welcome to Redacted Tonight VIP. If you've been watching Redacted Tonight recently, you know we've covered some pretty groundbreaking stories, the 21 trillion unaccounted for at the Pentagon over the past 20 years, as well as the 44,000 bombs Trump's military dropped last year, which averages out to about one every 12 minutes. Both those stories are thanks partially to the investigative journalism of David DeGraw. So I figured, let's get him in here. Here we go. David, thanks for taking the time to be here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lee. It's been awesome to watch you evolve into the force you've become, man. I'm inspired by your work.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'm inspired by yours. I want to talk about some of yours that has inspired me. Let's start off with the largest theft in human history, I believe it could be called. I think that's a good place to start. On my show several weeks ago, I covered the 21 trillion that is unaccounted for at the Pentagon, and I got a lot of that info from you and your reporting. How did you uncover that insane story?
Well, you know, I've been covering military spending for a very long time now, really since the Bank of Credit and Commerce International in the 90s. And it's just, military spending has been lacking accountability for decades. And weapons contractors, and you know, they have known this for the longest time, that there's really no oversight over military spending, so they pretty much do whatever they want. And then, you know, as you mentioned, Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore did excellent work looking through the DoD Inspector General reports, showing all this unaccounted for money, which we always known was a problem, but we never really had a overall figure, an overall view of it, which that research team gave us, showing us the astonishing 21 trillion in unaccounted for money, which is really just a partial view. I mean, it could be 30, 40 trillion, who knows? I mean, it's surreally absurd corruption that is just going on throughout military spending, throughout the entire governmental system, really. I mean, you know all about it.
Yeah, it really is a tough number to get your head around at all. It took me a long time to even figure out how such a number could be possible. And you talk about how you're just getting a glimpse of it. We're not really seeing everything that goes on at the Pentagon, that goes on with our military. This was just certain numbers from the Inspector General's report. But a bit of breaking news this week. Is this right? They've now redacted the report from December 2017?
Yeah, since we've all been making noise about this, their only response, repeated attempts to get the Office of the Inspector General to respond to our questions have gone unanswered. The only two answers they've given us was one, when they decided to take all the reports offline, which you covered in a hilarious segment. You know, they just basically took all the reports down offline, but we had already downloaded them, so they couldn't cover it up that way. And now the latest report they released, where we've been getting all this information from, this annual report, it's all redacted. This is the only way they can defend it, by redacting it. You know, I mean, I spent a lot of time covering trillions of dollars of outright fraud through the financial crisis. And one thing that I've always noticed, it's like when you catch them doing these colossal trillion-dollar frauds, as soon as you start closing in on them and getting the truth out, they wave the wand of national security, and now they redact all the information. And of course, the U.S. mainstream press, which is owned by global war profiteers, straight up. I mean, the U.S. mainstream press is now a psychological operations, a divide and conquer of the American people. I mean, look, Lee, I don't make money at journalism anymore because, I mean, I've been so censored online. I do this because I'm genuinely worried about the fate of the American country. I mean, I'm worried about my family's future, our children's future. I mean, we are in a death spiral, Lee. I mean, just look at the numbers. Do the math, people. You know, record-breaking national debt, record-breaking state debt, record-breaking household debt, record-breaking personal debt, student debt, medical debt. Medical bankruptcies, 60% of bankruptcies because of high medical bills. I mean, Lee, you know it. We are in a death spiral, and global war profiteers have taken control of the U.S. mainstream media, both political parties, and they're waving the flag, you know?
Okay, so what you're seeing here is called security stalking, and I get this at the Topanga Plaza. What you're gonna see here is the security vehicle waiting in this area. And then he's going to take and follow me along throughout the parking lot as I walk out to my RV. parked in the outer section. Notice that security is following behind me as I'm walking in the parking lot in this area, and you'll see security pull around in a few seconds. You can clearly see how he's slowly following along, slowly pacing. You see how slowly he's driving as he apparently, stalks me as a suspect in the area. And next, what you see here is what I noticed, the repetitive tactic of intersecting, that is, stopping the vehicle so that it's facing you as you cross the street. So it's like it's confronting you as you cross the street. It's like a psychological tactic.
Okay, so notice that security followed me out of this external parking lot here when I've got my RV parked here, so followed slowly and followed me all the way out.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is a clip that I took from my movie The Dragons of Blade Runner, in which I exposed that in far shots with low light, you can see these demonic forms on the actors. This is Harrison Ford in the bathroom scene, and you see these weird shapes that are not just random shapes. They actually have a pattern. You notice the pattern. It looks like 8 spikes on his forehead, 4 on each side, kind of bridging up from his nose area. And as the shots progress, you see it becomes more and more clear. And in this particular shot here, you can see it the most clearly. It almost looks like a horny toad. You see that? It looks like 4 separate little spikes coming out on each side. And I put it in black and white also so you can see it a little better.
Silver and blue LAPD as I'm coming out to my car. From the mall to Topanga Plaza near Nordstrom. Flying almost directly overhead. Kind of looks suspicious, like it's flying over me, don't you think? We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube, or non-humans to YouTube, circling around the area. So he, as you can see, he pulled over the mall roof over here, see? As I was going into my car. So he flew out this way like this, around me and like this, and you can bet that chances are if I didn't have the camera out and rolling, 2 cameras as a matter of fact, he probably would have circled around again directly overhead. See if I had no record of it. Silver and blue LAPD as I'm coming out to my car. From the mall to Topanga Plaza near Nordstrom, flying almost directly overhead. Kind of looks suspicious, like it's flying over me, don't you think? We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube, or non-humans to YouTube, circling around the area. Okay, so that's what you've got in this country, friends. You upload non-humans to YouTube. What's the big deal, right? Shouldn't the American people be free to express if they've seen non-humans or they've detected non-humans intelligence? And then, and this is what you get. You get gang-stalked, harassed, with law enforcement vehicles being used to harass you both day and night. Since I uploaded the Jan Brennan interview, I've had helicopter night raids, a lot more picking up. They get you right when you're at the most sleep heavy, and so it's harder to get out of bed quickly. But if you do, as soon as I get the camera rolling, they'll fly off, but they'll circle around until I get the camera out.
I was so red. I mean, I could feel my face was so hot. And he said, my ET friends watch out for me. They will kill for me. And he's looking at me.
And he said that verbally to you?
Verbally to me, in front of everybody. But I mean, like I said, all I thought was this guy has a lot of balls, or big balls, or something like that. I mean, I hated him. And you just got that. You didn't even have an encounter. You just didn't like. You just got a bad vibe from him. Did not like him. Didn't like him. Didn't like him. when he turned around and yelled at me, I swear he looked like a lizard, and I had never heard of reptilians.
His actual appearance?
Shapeshifted. His appearance, he got angry, and it's like his face looked like the face of a dinosaur lizard thing. And I mean, he didn't fully change, but it's almost like an overlay over his face. It almost looked like, and I thought, oh my God. Like I said, I had never heard of reptilians ever.
And right overhead, check this out, friends. Check it out. Silver and gray LAPD looks like. Maybe it's a solid white. Going for a direct overhead. Psychological warfare, arrival home buzz. Or uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube.
Those people.
I have never actually dealt with a person who came to me who had a non-physical experience. That is simply not part of the phenomenon. People are physically missing from their normal environments when they are abducted. They are not mentally missing, and other people see them in bed and all the rest of that stuff or whatever. That simply, I have never had that. That does not happen.
We're dealing with millions upon millions of people who are describing this phenomenon. What is it then?
Planetary acquisition through creation of human-like hybrids. In other words, from the very beginning of our knowledge of the abduction phenomenon, the Antonio Villas-Boas case in 1957 in Brazil, Villas-Boas was taken on board a UFO, and this happened to him, that happened to him, this happened to him, and that happened. Then he was placed into a room with this beautiful-looking, sort of human female, and he was required to have sexual intercourse for her. Then the very next case we discovered, the Barney and Betty Hill case in 1961, they took him, this is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they took him into a UFO, they did this to him and that to him, they took a sperm sample from Barney, and they injected a needle into Betty's navel, and she thought it might be a pregnancy test or whatever it is. Those two cases, which we did not recognize correctly, both had reproductive elements to them.
What do you mean we did not recognize them correctly?
Well, we knew that Barney had had a sperm sample, but we just thought it was an examination, just to see what things are like, if that. We couldn't think about these cases. There wasn't enough knowledge to even think about these. So it doesn't mean anything. You can't think correctly about them.
How should we be thinking, or what are you referring to now then?
Well, virtually every abductee has had, if it's a male, has had sperm taken from them, and every woman has had eggs taken from them, ova. This is a reproductively oriented phenomenon, and it has been since the beginning.
So as you can see here, this is probably what these ads are for all these eggs you see all the time, and sperm. Hey, circling around here. 241, 241.
There were bright lights outside, and they went out, and it was your standard gray alien standing in front of me. And 2 or 3 shorter ones, they were like reptiles, but they had like hoods over them, and they were maybe 3 feet tall. They came in and carried me out to the end of my bed, and I woke up in some sort of laboratory, and they did a check on me. They did like a biopsy or something like that. And they said that they were communicating telepathically with me, and they said they wanted to check my genetics to see if I was compatible with what they wanted to do. And so we waited there 15 minutes or so, and it came back. They said just barely your genetics will work. And then his exact words, or thoughts were, we want to borrow your consciousness, is what he said to me. And I said, okay, what does that mean? What does that entail? What is that going to do? And he said, we're going to take you for 20 years and bring you back. And I said, no, I can't do that. I have a family. There's no way. He said, no, we have time travel, and you're going to be back in just 15 minutes. You know, we're going to get you back home.
One thing I've found is being actually a known enemy to Satan since childhood. Looking back now, I understand why the resistance I got in every place, why all of a sudden people hate me for no cause of appearance whatsoever or behavior. And I now understand that most people, through this behavior, I understand, are controlled by demons. People are controlled by their inner devils, these beings, because these beings are who feels that emotion of hatred. That directly correlates to the person having a negative feeling or a positive, or whatever feeling they have in that person, who doesn't even realize. I was just in this coffee shop over here, and this man with a long hair and a beard was sitting there. I just noticed him. There's nothing too interesting. Didn't give one thought about him. And as I'm walking by, he goes, the classic demonic whistle. Okay, and now, if you haven't experienced this, it sounds like total loony bins, like people, Anyway, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, it is it's a way for them to psychological warfare you, to make you feel unwelcome or attacked in every place in a subtle way. And anybody can just say, well, someone's just whistling. People whistle all the time. How can you say that's an attack? But it is, and happens all the time. And but what I want to say though with this was that I now understand what's going on here. It is a situation where people are their demons. I mean, this is who they are. This is who we are. This is who I am. I've shown my demons in video, so I'm not denying that it is an actual thing that is within all of us, as I believe Romans 7 describes. Romans 7, and what Paul is saying there is that, O wretched man that I am, every time I would want to do good, I actually end up doing evil, and it's easy for me to do evil, but it's hard for me to do good. And if I choose not to do it, but then I still do it, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. So in this part of God's word, God is calling these demons sin. But we know that these demons, these devils, these persons, as Derek Prince, I think, very well describes, are us. And so that's how I understand that when these people, if I notice a consistent behavior that has nothing to do with my appearance or actions, it has a consistent theme of anger and irritation and hatred for no reason, then I know that it is that people are their demons. If you have somebody that just is just viciously angry at you for no reason whatsoever, you can just see the anger, and it's the demon because I think that they are across time. They are perhaps beyond time, and so they can see the whole of your effect, what you do with your life.
It's been something that I've been able to do successfully in my own campaigns. It is not something I've been able to transfer. Preserving the independence of law enforcement.
There's all kinds of slavery. There's sexual slavery, unbelievably. There's many different classes of people that are abducted for slavery, sexual slavery. They want the tops and the smartest, and because they're worth more. They have, I think, 4 or 5 different levels of people that they abduct. They abduct top medical research people. They abduct the corporate levels, and they abduct the the most brilliant levels, and then they go down through 3 levels, and that says where they get sectioned off. Everybody gets to 2 planets, and then it's decided where they're going to be sent to. And but it's a massive business. It's been going on for years, and we can't identify where these people have gone. And just like normal abductions, we don't know where they went. But it's because most of them don't come back. We're only hearing from the few that came back.
We also use the term anti-telephone a lot. There was jokes about it, but we had anti-telephone technology to where if the mission was a failure, they could phone back in time and just cancel the mission before we left. That was my understanding. But that was what, again, this is hearsay that I was told from other slave guys like me.
Okay, so let's just kind of clarify that. So this older submarine type spacecraft, even though it had, piping and valves, that kind of older style technology familiar to those, who look at submarines, it had this anti-telephone technology that it could actually portal back in time to the time before it actually left the mission.
Right. Most of the time we got back, it was a short day. We would be gone 8 hours. I would be back within a half hour, and I had the rest of the day to go. We had longer periods of time that we were off work. Mm-hmm. And we would go, sometimes there'd be long days, 12, 16 hours, but I would come back. You actually travel back in time close to the time you left when you get back. So that's what I'm saying. We always said, that was the joke, like, you suck at your job so bad, we're going to anti-telephone and cancel this mission.
Okay, so that tells us then that these dark fleet vessels, even the kind of merchant ships, the freighters, have this kind of these temporal drives.
Yep.
Helicopter buzz in progress, helicopter buzz in progress. Direct overhead, thought-based buzz. We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube. Psychological warfare, friends. Okay, notice security intersecting as I enter into the mall. Okay, so notice that as I entered into the mall area, that security intersected me. Another mysterious shapeshift where it looks like his middle finger turns into a short stubby thing with a claw, and you'll see that in just a second. It's like it sticks out, but it's like this little tiny stubby thing, and then here in this next frame, the next frame coming up, you'll see a little nail will stick out. See? Look at that little nail sticking out of there. It's really weird. I mean, it wasn't there a few frames ago, and then all of a sudden it's sticking out, and that's probably the beginning of his real hand, or his reptilian form hand, you might say. Black and white coming hot. Direct overhead. Black and white. Silver and blue. Direct overhead as we're returning to vehicle.
We were very curious where these people were coming from, how they were acquiring them, and it turned out that they were using this multi-generational infrastructure for slavery that they had built just for here on Earth.
Really?
Yes, and it had never stopped. Slavery, the human slave trade on Earth has never even slowed down, really.
So just to make sure that I understand what you're saying, the exact same systems and the management structures and the coordination of how these cabal or Illuminati countries were doing it back going hundreds of years, it just continued directly through to this galactic slave trade involving extraterrestrials.
Yes, to present time.
I know I've asked you this before, but for the purposes of clarity for today, how long have extraterrestrials been grabbing slaves off of our planet?
As long as we've been on this planet.
Direct overhead, this is a buzz, We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube. Believe it or not, black and white. As I entered the park, this guy comes overhead, coming hot, you can hear the sound coming.
The way they treat these slaves, you have no hope of ever seeing home again. They treat them just well enough to where they want to survive, they want to stay alive, but bad enough to where they will follow any order.
Tompkins also mentioned manufacturing jobs. Could we talk about that a little bit? What type of jobs might they have?
Sure. I'm sure everyone remembers me discussing the manufacturing plants on Mars, to where, you know, they would have tens to hundreds of thousands of people living close by these manufacturing plants, to where they were being sent in trains to these plants to work. And this is going on other bodies in our solar system as well.
So are they going to actually do high technology stuff?
Yeah. Yes. They're building things that non-terrestrials are coming here to trade for.
Right. Is a significant majority of the workforce that they have for things like the ICC all actually abducted slaves?
They're abducted slaves and people that go and apply for a job, they get a job, they're happy, they go to work, and then become a slave.
But you've also described in other episodes that there are plenty of extraterrestrials who are not going to be local to our solar system, and they are also picking up slaves for a variety of different reasons as well. Mm-hmm. And we may have no idea what those people are doing.
How this really all turned into such a huge trade is that in the beginning of when we started having contact with non-terrestrials, we were allowing them to abduct humans and take humans. And there were so many humans that were never coming back. So the very morally bankrupt people in this cabal decided, wait a minute, if we can hold off the non-terrestrials, we can trade these people for technology.
What is the estimate, or if there's a sliding scale of estimates, as to how many people per year are being brought into this?
Well, I remember the statistic for worldwide disappearances is like 1 million people.
And if that's happening every year, it could be very sizable.
Yes, it's millions of people have been taken off this planet.
So we could literally be talking about many millions of people who have been brought off this planet into this world in various ways.
Yes, that are being brought into the slave trade. And then you also have to remember that the people we were just talking about that lived on these, that are slaves on these Mars facilities, they, over the decades, began to have children. And these children are born into slavery. So it's generations of slaves are up there.
And Tompkins corroborated a lot of things that you've said very precisely, including this idea of like a brain drain or different echelons, different tiers of people being brought in.
This is one of the biggest topics that the cabal doesn't want anyone to know about. This is one of the things, if we have full disclosure and people find out about all these crimes against humanity, it's going to be a crazy day on planet Earth.
Buzz in progress, buzz in progress. Los Angeles Police Department vehicle passing directly overhead. Okay, we've got buzz in progress, buzz in progress. Direct overhead, here he comes, coming hot, coming hot. Black and white LAPD. Thought-based buzz, seems like. Direct overhead the area. We're uploading Reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube. Are the Reptilians our friends? I'm starting to think not, because this is psychological warfare. Most people get freaked out. A girl just told me that she was ran out of LA from that. Direct overhead, black and white. Not direct overhead, near direct overhead.
Than this. You notice it's serrated on the sides and it's serrated on the top. Look what's coming out of the back of it in color. 5 separate gases coming out of this reptilian tanker, dropping 5 gases at 300 feet. You're smoking their gas today because they dropped this gas only on technically advancing communities on the planet. Okay? Every 4 to 6 weeks. So you could be getting it today. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They didn't see it because everybody's minds are controlled to not see it, just like a stealth system. So the commander of the squadron made sure that that stealth was turned on. He forgot to turn on the stealth that prevents the camera from photographing it. Okay? So, the reason you don't see these, they're flying all over us. There's hundreds of them. There's thousands of them every single day on your planet. They're dropping the gas. So your mind is being controlled, and you don't function normally, or how you should function. And so, again, we are being mind controlled, not for the last couple of weeks, but for thousands of years. And that's back to the Romans again. Their minds were controlled. And it's hard for us to accept that somebody's controlled my mind. And particularly, now this is extremely important, particularly because the brilliant PhDs in all technical fields, these people are the most important for everything that we need in science. But their minds have been controlled. So they won't listen to what some of the rest of us are talking about, because they know everything, but what they've been taught in those books at the university is all lies. Every technical field, it's all lies, it's incorrect. And it's preventing people to put in the 8 years or whatever, knowing everything now, to accept this subject. That's the reason Congress didn't accept it. When the MUFON went back to Congress, the Democrats and the Republicans, neither one of them. Oh, their heads were all nodding up and down, yeah. 10 minutes later, it was removed because they were already programmed. Their minds were programmed not to accept that. I know this sounds insane, but this is fact. This is what it is.
All right, well, I don't know about you, but that's pretty shocking stuff to me. As a UFO investigator, I wouldn't have believed any of this, maybe even as recently as a couple of years ago. So, Corey, what do you think about this? What's your initial thoughts after seeing this clip?
Very interesting. What I have found out more recently is that they do drop gas, they being the Draco, do drop gas on technologically evolving areas, but they also monitor each city, county, whatever, and if a certain amount of people are starting to wake up, they will go and drop mind control gas on them. It's more of a throwing bleach on a situation.
They would increase the gas if more people start to wake up in a given area?
Yes, they have, not only do they use gas, but for the most part they use a technology that sends, that puts out a field that controls our minds. You've seen people be hypnotized and they'll say that, they'll be told, okay, your wife is invisible. You can no longer see her. And then your wife will walk between you and another thing and you don't see the wife. You see through the wife and you see what's behind it.
Right.
Well, the mind control works a lot like that as well. There are different layers of the mind control. There's different layers of how the mind works, and they have to have a solution for each layer, technologically and chemically.
This helps me start to put together other pieces that I've been gathering for a long time, and the mind control stuff was always kind of sounding a little dubious to me, but I did have an insider, and he explained to me that there is an AI computer system that's monitoring everyone on Earth's thoughts, and that if you start to awaken to the things that this computer is programmed for you not to think about, that it will create things like nervousness, extreme exhaustion, tiredness, anything that it can do to try to divert your mind off of the topic. Are you aware of anything AI related like that?
Not specifically, but it makes total sense. If the Draco are AI prophets, if they report up to artificial intelligence, and all the information I've given on artificial intelligence about how it's controlling the planet, that's not a huge leap at all.
We're looking at a ship in this photograph that William holds up, and there seems to be other ships like that in the sky. First of all, he's mentioning a cloaking technique, and it's not really clear if the technique is simply something that we can't see it because we're mind controlled not to see the ship, or is it that it actually bends light around the object? I wasn't really clear.
Both.
You think it's both?
Both. It is both. Yes, there's the component that I talked about, the hypnotism reference I gave,
right,
to where they put out a field to where they don't want you to see certain things. You just don't see them. And I mean, you could have your dog could be next to you going, what the heck is that? And you don't see it. It's, it's set to the waves of how our mind works. The alpha, delta, theta, beta waves. So they're manipulating you on that level. And I say you, I mean us, because usually when you hear humans are mind controlled, just like he said, people sit back, my mind's not being controlled. That must be other people. I'm too far advanced. I have special beings that I talk to. It's just impossible. But the fact is, all of us, you, me, people at home, we're all mind controlled to a certain degree.
So when he was showing us this image of what he called a reptilian ship, it has an interesting appearance, and I'm curious if you have seen any craft like that were attributed to reptilians.
Very similar,
Really?
except they looked as if they were tankers that held a lot more volume of whatever they're transporting. And the experience I had was I was seeing footage of these things bringing in water from lakes and oceans.
And because of this mind control and cloaking, they could be doing this and you wouldn't even know that it was happening?
Could be happening right above you right now, and there's no way you would know. They could be taking water out of your local reservoir.
Well, let's just kind of get through the fluff and get to the meat of this, which is, what's the purpose for us being mind controlled? What's the big deal? What are they trying to stop?
Well, they're trying to stop us from advancing technologically so that we are an interstellar race.
Interesting.
And they're trying to keep us under control on this somewhat slave planet that they are wardens of. So there's a lot of reasons why they do mind control. Any of these sociopathic groups, human or non, that are in a place of power, they want to keep that power. And if you have no moral compunctions about doing slavery or any number of other things, controlling the minds of the people on a planet you control is going to be just going to make sense to you.
Helicopter approaching, here it comes. Direct overhead. Silver and blue LAPD, flying direct overhead. July 17th, 6:48 p.m. Passes over and turns off. Definitely changes direction after he passes over. So see, I was right here, came in this direction like this, passed right here, passed over, then turned off in this direction like that. You saw that curvature as you came here. So what I have gotten from all of this, and one of the reasons why I post these updates about the intergalactic aspect of this whole thing, the off-world thing, the time travel thing, the military abductions, the selling of slaves, which if you haven't run into that, you watch enough of these videos in this area and you begin to see that they are consistent. They have a slave trade, off-planet slave trade for humans. Okay, sex slaves a lot of times, technical people, and even all kinds of menial labor people. They are actually slaves. They are forced to do what they do. They are threatened with death if they don't perform their duties. And humans make good slaves because they trade, for these off-world. So there's humans all over the galaxy, maybe even beyond, that have been breeding in these colonies and now they are just used to the fact of being slaves. So apparently the universe is not quite so friendly with benevolent, spiritually evolved beings that really love us. You see, this whole slave trade thing doesn't match with the loving rhetoric of the mantis, you know, and even like this one woman was saying about her reptilian handler, her reptilian alien abductor, that she waited on her bed, just longing for him to come back. Oh, longing, okay? Now, this isn't her fault, because what they do is, see, humans on Earth don't always have a loving experience to compare this with. Like, they don't really have an experience with their own parents and with their own family. Or maybe they, you know, what these aliens have is the ability to project this feeling and memory of this just intense love, okay? And they can do that with their minds. They don't even need like some sort of technical device. They just hypnotize them with their mind. These reptilians, they can look into your eyes. And also these mantis and the tall grays have this ability. And so what they do is they can actually reach in and say, you know, change a person's entire memory and feeling to the point where they've never experienced something so wonderful and loving. And doesn't this make sense for the whole abduction phenomena, which I think, once again, the highly credible and award-winning, in my opinion, Dr. David Jacobs' work, you know, reveals that it is not a benevolent, friendly to humans type program. This is not what it is. And you heard what Corey Good said in that clip, that, you know, if this is one of the main reasons why for non-disclosure, the government will never, and that's what I've continued to say. Some people think that there's going to be a false flag alien invasion, but I think that's total crock, because there's no way they will ever talk about the non-human secrets, but anything that breaks their whole ordinary belief system, because they do not want any of this to come out. They don't want any exposure, any mass exposure, because as Corey Good was saying, if they find out about this, and then they find out about the off-world slave colonies, okay, that they have sold humans out to extraterrestrials, and there's whole colonies of breeding slaves, not just slaves, breeding slaves, as I've heard before with some of these real horror stories where they got women in rooms that are basically incubators. They keep them in cages to have babies so that the reptilians can eat them. They grow them up like cattle because they eat humans, and it's this incredible evil thing. I mean, it seems like a science fiction. It seems false. If it was happening to you, you would see why we need to, as a race and as a planet, stand up and stop this shit. Casual in the scripture, not gonna make it.